we have two characters. One is the child soldier named Haru, although he doesn't have that name as part of the story. And another character who has been tracking him, hunting him down. Haru is in a dangerous place. He is in a swamp, an area called the Swamps of Death. It's a terrifying zone of monstrosities. The ancient world story is a magic realist book. The modern world story is a social realist book. At any rate, he is being hunted. He's alone. He has no allies. He's lost his mother. He's lost everybody who was with him. And now here he is. And so this is what has happened to him. So this is, from his point of view. It's about a 10-year-old boy. For about a month, it got harder and harder to sleep because I knew that crazy mud-headed bastard was stalking me, him and his damn jackals. But he didn't know that I could turn into a shadow. So I started stalking him just to figure out how he operated and get his weaknesses so I could form an attack plan if it came to that. A couple of nights on night patrol, I stepped on a branch, snapping it, and all those jackals of his stood stone still, except their eyes and ears probing the darkness, trying to find me. Idiot! For all I knew, those jackals might have been able to see through my shadow. But I was more worried about them smelling me. And I'd get scared and not quiver a finger for 1,000 breaths if that's what it took for them to finally march on out. Or on the times I didn't blow my own cover, sometimes I just got bored. So then I'd leave, dig up some grubs, bring them back to my falcon for breakfast, where I'd check my rat traps. And I knew eventually Mudhead and I were going to have a showdown. I hated him. Guy wouldn't leave me alone. Thought he owned the whole Savage Lands. My only chance was to lure him up a tree where his jackals couldn't go. Then I'd gut him, or slit his throat like a goat's. I fell asleep, dreaming my mother never died, but was just pretending, so that the destroyer couldn't find her, and that she was still looking for me. Hey, asshole! It was him. So much for my plan. Night, full moon, and I was stuck out in the open, no shadow on, lost in my head, refighting all my old battles, re-losing all those kids, re-watching my friend Shy die, and the kid get shredded by the crocodiles, all the while my hands did the work of strapping Fang to a long broken branch for use as a spear. I'd done such a good job strapping Fang on, I couldn't rip it off, so now it was useless against those jackals in close-up defense. And they had me surrounded, them and all their teeth. So we charged each other. Stop it! We both stopped totally. The jackals too. There was a man standing in silhouette. Moon right behind his head, like he was balanced there. Beside him was a tall bird up to his hip with a curved beak. I didn't know what those birds were called, but I'd seen plenty of them, but this one was different. It was black with gold eyes. I tried moving, but it was like I was made out of rock. My enemy's eyes were whirling, but his mouth was grimaced like he was straining to use it and couldn't. The jackals stood there like stumps, whining and panting through their noses. "We're defiling this land, attacking each other here," said the moon-blackened man. "You think this is what the gods want? What the gods won't punish?" Great. One of those religious weirdos. Gods this and punish that. At least in my mom's camp, I didn't have to listen to that. She used to laugh at people like that. Well, what good are the gods, she'd say. Don't be thanking them. I'm the one who got you this food. But this crazy old man with his big black bird out here in the Savage Lands at night, with his words of power stilling us like stone, that was a bad combination. Probably some warlock who got chased out of his village for too much dancing or babbling full blast in the middle of the night, or for turning people into goats. You know, warlocks do that, just for laughs. "Follow me, you two," he grumbled. "And your puppies, too." I love that. I chuckled even though I couldn't move my mouth. I could just imagine Mudhead choking on it. Puppies? We marched stiffly. I still couldn't budge my raised spear arm, and it was throbbing. Finally, the old man noticed and told me to put it down, and my arm went down on its own. and we went up the hill in darkness. At the top, he ordered us to sit, all except the black bird did, even the dogs. Behold, he whispered, maybe to himself. He lifted his arms to the horizon, the moon still perched above his head, and the sun came up just like that. Blinding gold. I shielded my eyes, and it took me a minute to realize I could move again. My enemy was figuring out the same thing. He flinched, I leapt with my spear, and stopped because we were surrounded by about 40 goddamn baboons with gougers bigger than the jackals had. This was the old man's gang. My enemy and I got the message, and we both sat back down. That's better, said the old man. Now be quiet and listen, and hopefully you'll learn something. He waved his hand in front of the baboons, and they all started singing. Now, I have seen crazy things. Devils boiling out of a sinkhole and dragging a man who was screaming death. Cows with eyes so beautiful they nearly made me cry. Veils of stars transforming into my mother's face in the night sky. But baboons singing? That was new. And their song was beautiful. Like gongs and chimes and the sound of the eternal river where it came from back in the Black Land. We listened silently while the sun rose, and even the jackals were still. When the baboons stopped, the old man came over and crouched on his haunches. Now you two listen to me. I've been watching you both for some time. You're both resourceful. You've survived the death traps out here all on your own. You were each smart enough not to drink the swamp water, and you're excellent rangers. But for smart kids, you're both pretty stupid. I've seen you both spoiling for a showdown. More times than you can dream, I let one or both of you, of course, at the last moment. He snorted, spat, and then went on. But I can't be everywhere in the savage lands, and I won't always be able to stop you two little brutes from ripping into each other as bloody bits. You'll both die. You know it, and I know it. And he pointed to the horizon and he whispered. White mountains appeared there, tall enough to scrape the sky's skin, with sides as straight as sun rays. The savage lands were gone. No horror jungles filled with bandits, slavers, soldiers, and murderers. No swamps of death clawed with crocodiles and clotted over with scum. No children marching or farming in chains. And no burnt-eyed kids gripping hatchets or drowning each other or beating each other to death. Instead, because I saw my enemy seeing what I saw, and his face looked warped and bizarre to me. And then I realized what it was, that he was happy. And I hadn't seen a happy face in longer than I could remember. We looked out into the purified black land of lotus flowers and straight paths banked by trees all exactly the same height, and saw people by the millions baking bread, carving statues, reciting poems, painting walls, setting broken bones, cuddling babies, sailing boats, sewing clothes, lifting stone, sleeping soundly without fear. If you two can't forget about your little war, when out into the savage lands, it's nothing but war, said the old man who turned the horizon into the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I'll teach you both what I know, so you can make our brutal world die and bring that to life. We looked at each other, my enemy and me, and for the first time without glaring, just looking. And we nodded at the same time. Good, said the old man. Then come back with me to my house. Got food and clean water that won't poison you. Sir, said my enemy. I glanced at him, so polite all of a sudden, like maybe underneath all that mud he wasn't a born savage. I work for the sorceress, and I don't think, that I should just quit like that. She wouldn't trust me. It'll be fine. Uncle, I said, because back in my day, that's how you show respect to an old man if you didn't know what his title was, and warlock didn't sound appropriate. Uncle, I have this animal that I take care of. It's a falcon. I need to get to him. What, you mean this one? Right there on his shoulder. I don't know how I missed it, but there was Falcon. Perched, as happy as could be. The old man gave him a nut, which he crunched and swallowed. Proo, proo, said the Falcon. All right, I said, impressed. I didn't know Falcon knew how to fly. How did this old man? We moved out. His place wasn't much, a hut, but it was dry, and he wasn't lying about the food and water. He had plenty of each. Even enough for the jackals, Falcon, his own big black bird, and the occasional baboon with gold eyes. The Savage Lands was like that. Everything was weird. The master, that's what we ended up calling him, taught us a bunch of stuff neither of us knew about, like how to bake bread and how to make bricks. When he tried eating my first bread, he said, "We'll use these for bricks." And he laughed, and I must have looked hurt because he said, "I was just kidding." I wonder why he's got that big old bird with him all the time, I said to Yinapu, my old enemy, one day when we were drawing bricks. The one with the curved beak? It's called an ibis, stupid. He spat, shaking his head and laying a line of bricks. Don't you know anything? Maybe we weren't enemies anymore, but he was still a jerk. We were building a wall. It was to surround the master's hut and storage areas, and while we built it, he taught us about numbers and measurement. What's all this for? You've seen all those chosen out there. Yeah? I mean, yes, master? You've seen how they're being treated. I felt my heart pounding. My neck went hot. I felt the cold anger of my blade fang in my hand even though I left it back in the hut. I heard Falcon make the cry he makes when we go hunting. I almost said the words, "Are we going to go rescue them?" Yinapu looked like he was thinking the same thing. The master said, "The ancestors scatter their wisdom like they sow his seeds. And those who would feast must first sweat beneath the sun." I didn't get it. And by his face, neither did he. It definitely wasn't what I wanted to hear, which was a battle plan. We went back to laying bricks. So we didn't mount any rescue missions. No storming the mines and the farms, me with Fine and Falcon, Yinapu with his gang of jackals, and the master with his army of rip-teeth baboons, gutting chainsmen and taking their ears for our necklaces. But when we were foraging for supplies or checking our traps, sometimes we'd find stragglers who'd run away or gotten lost. They were always sick and hungry, and they looked like hell. We'd try to convince them to come with us, but you can't always talk sense to people. And some of them were still crazy from drinking swamp water. The master took in whoever we brought back, and I was glad we'd done all that work on that wall. We had a defensible area with enough space for sleeping, and on papyrus reed mats, we didn't have to sleep in piles like dogs. We had food trees inside the wall, and the master ground up seeds and boiled weeds and bark and made all kinds of medicine to make these kids we found right again. Now, a lot can change in 3 years. I got strong. I became a good fighter, and so did Yinapu. We'd stopped being idiots for the most part anyway. Really, him and me, we were good partners. We never talked about it or anything, but we worked really well together and laughed a lot. But we never talked about our parents. I knew that my mom was dead.